So the Boston Celtics won their record-breaking 18th NBA championship and the first since 2008. Ironically, on the same day they won it back in 2008 as well. So it's definitely memorable. Jayson Tatum, 31 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. Jaylen Brown, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. And Jaylen Brown was named NBA Finals MVP. I want to know, you picked this team to win. I want to know, how impressed were you with the Celtics' performance last night?
The theme of my commentary tonight is anything worth having is worth waiting for. The Celtics have waited 16 years since their last championship. It was worth waiting for. Very exciting. The fans were going nuts. Celtics have some of the best fans in the in the world. I happen to be one of them. And they were ecstatic, and rightfully so. It's anything worth having is worth waiting for. Just ask Al Horford. He waited 17 years for his first championship. He got it last night. And the classy Joe Mazzulla had him the first to come off the court near the end when they were up so far that it was obvious Dallas wasn't going to catch him, and the game was in hand. He was the first one off the court, got a massive standing ovation. His dad in the stands. Couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier for Al Horford. He's had a long career, a very distinguished career, done very well over the years. Never lucky enough to get a championship. He finally got it last night. I bet you he'll be back next year.
He is. He's expected to be back next year.
Anything worth having is worth waiting for. Just ask Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. They played together for 7 years now. First time they've had a championship. Made it 2 years ago. Lost to the Warriors. Very disappointing. Looked like they were going to be able to win that championship with the way they started out. Wound up getting beat by Steph Curry. So they learned a lot from that. And they didn't make it last year, but collapsing to the Heat in the last game there after they got down 3-0, came back to tie it 3-3, but couldn't get it done in the seventh game at home, which was very surprising and very disappointing for everyone. This year, I would say another point, anything worth having, worth waiting for, is Brad Stevens. He's been with the team as the coach. Had a lot of success winning, but never getting to the didn't get to the championship game. Always got to the conference finals, but never was able to punch his ticket to the championship. Was kicked upstairs to be the GM. Realized that too much pressure on Jayson Tatum in a really tight game down the stretch doesn't work. Tatum doesn't generally come through that way. He's good during the regular game, leading up to the end, with really balanced scoring, a balanced performance with assists and rebounds and scoring. It generally had triple doubles here or close to it in many of these games. But when a game is on the line and it's really close, the Celtics down the stretch have never been that good, and he's part of the reason. And I think they finally recognize that. They decided it's got to be a more balanced attack. We got to go out and get some support for him beyond just Jaylen Brown. And they did it. They brought in Drew Holiday. They have Derek White. They have Kristaps Porzingis. And they have Al Horford. And but between them, all of those players and some people coming off the bench as well. Hauser, able to come in and hit threes. The point guard, number 11. Peyton Pritchard. Didn't have a really great final series, but is a really good ball handler and distributor. Can hit the three occasionally. Having that depth and having that talent across all the players and playing a team concept led by Mazzulla was the winning formula. And one last thing I'll say before I turn it over to you, and I'll have more to say in a few minutes. I want to throw out a big thank you to the Minnesota Timberwolves for knocking off the Nuggets. Because if it had been the Nuggets against the Celtics, I'm not so sure. I'm pretty sure it would have definitely gone 7, and I at least 7. And I not so sure the Celtics would have won that because they lost both games to the Nuggets during the year.
Yeah.
And I just think the Nuggets ran up. They had a bad streak there. For whatever reason, they couldn't knock off the Timberwolves, who played poorly against Dallas. So Dallas was never – it was pretty clear they weren't going to knock off the Celtics. After the first game, you could tell that. So
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, but I just say thank you, Celtics. Very happy. I've been alive for all 18 championships. I was a big Celtics fan when I was really young, watching Bill Russell play with that cast around him, which was exceptional then, and then the Larry Bird era, and now the Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, and supporting cast era. It's great. Hopefully, Jayson Tatum, who's only 27 years old, 26 years old,
yeah,
and has been in the league 7 years. Michael Jordan didn't win his first championship till he was, 28?
27. KD was 28. LeBron was 27.
Yeah. So, these guys could go on a run. They could go on a run. I hope they can hold this team together. I'm sure Tatum's going to get a max contract over the summer. Jaylen Brown definitely earned his money. He wound up the MVP of both the conference title and the finals title. So, go Celtics. Couldn't be happier.
Well, I'm going to give you your flowers because you were spot on with your pick. You picked the Celtics. You were riding them the entire season. And while I thought that a lot of people would not give the Celtics the right praise because we all expected this with the roster construction of Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Jayson Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, we kind of expected this. But it turns out that, rightfully so, the Celtics are getting the right praise they deserve. Now, it's unfair to immediately, but this is the way sports media is, immediately compare them to the greatest NBA Finals winning teams in NBA history. Is Joe Mazzulla one of the best coaches now? A bunch of this comparison. How about we just live in the moment and enjoy it? Because this was spectacular. We finally had a Jayson Tatum game where Jayson Tatum was absolutely spectacular through most, if not all, of this game. And it seems like towards the second half, him and Jaylen Brown were kind of going, piece for piece, tit for tat, where it comes to who's going to be the NBA Finals MVP. Turns out it's Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown was the best player in the NBA Finals, and he was the best player, like you mentioned, in the Eastern Conference Finals, winning the Larry Bird MVP trophy. So the Celtics did something incredible. They were the best team in the NBA, which hasn't been done, and won the NBA Finals, which hasn't been done since, I believe, the 16-17 Warriors. Drew Holiday is an incredible piece, and that's actually one of the key pieces that they added. Kristaps Porzingis, big man, could shoot threes, is great defensively. We saw in this series and in the series prior in this series alone. Defensively, game one, he comes back from his injury after being down almost a month, actually a little over a month, 38 days, I believe. He comes back and it's like block, rebound, 10 points in the first quarter, 11 points in the first quarter, 8 points. He was going off. He was absolutely incredible. So Porzingis' impact in this series, which what I was fearing that the Celtics wouldn't have in the two prior series when he was out. Turns out it wasn't the case. Pacers couldn't stop him offensively. They had no defense. The Celtics had to go up against a Cavs team that already wasn't that good, had trouble against the Magic, who were a fine team, but still not one of the upper echelon teams of the NBA. And then they eventually lost Donovan Mitchell in the last two. So the Celtics did something incredible. When they needed players to make big plays, they did. In this game, Derek White, 4 of 8 from 3. Chip Tooth had a beautiful block on Derek Lively that was incredible. Peyton Pritchard, the second half-court buzzer beater 3 to end the half. I think that's the first time in NBA Finals history of 2 buzzer beater 3s in the same series. So he played, a minute and 25 seconds, I believe. And he still had a massive impact, crushing the soul. And what's funny is that you could throw game 4 away. Throw it away. Didn't really matter because as soon as you went back to TD Garden in Boston, the halftime lead was 67-46. This was not a game. In the first quarter, you could tell. The Celtics were clearly the better team. They wanted it more. And I think, honestly, Luka Doncic was probably tired. Because he carried that team in large parts, and especially in the playoffs when he needed to. Kyrie Irving especially did not step up, which he hasn't been able to do in large parts in the last 13, 14 games against the Celtics. He has won one game, I believe. He's won a singular game in the past 13 or 14, and he doesn't play very well. In this game, he had 15 points, 3 of 9 from 3, 5 of 16, from the floor. So I'm going to give you your flowers. The Celtics played incredible all season. I think they silenced a lot of doubters because they thought that Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, one of them needed to go. We heard about who are they going to trade. They should trade somebody. They're not going to win with this unit, and especially after they lost to the Warriors in the way they did. Jaylen Brown has no left hand. Jayson Tatum, triple-digit turnovers in the playoffs during that finals run. We heard everything in the book. And this team played phenomenal. I think the regular season does matter because it builds rapport, it builds chemistry, it builds schematics, which Joe Mazzulla, being as young as he is, which he's the youngest coach to win an NBA Finals since Bill Russell back in '69, I think trying very hard in the regular season, I think it does translate to the playoffs. So the Celtics did exactly what they were supposed to do and did it honestly. The finals were a little bit surprising to a lot of people, I think, because a lot of people picked the Mavs, including myself, because we thought the high-flying offense of Doncic and Kyrie, Derek Lively, Gafford, P.J. Washington being a perfectly fine three-piece, but the Celtics just showed that they are an entirely different level of NBA play when it comes to a team that, yes, Luka was a little bit banged up, still is out there. It's the same thing. If you're good enough to play out there, I'm going to assess you as if you really weren't hurt because you decided to play. If you're a detriment to the team, I'm going to say that. I'm not going to excuse you.
Yeah. Well, I would say the Celtics had the team that many thought could win the championship. They showed during the regular season they were the best team in the NBA. 62 wins, I believe. It's a great season. And it would have been a failure. The season would have been considered a failure. 64 wins.
Yeah.
The season would have been considered a failure if they hadn't won the championship, is my opinion.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. And you look at some of the stats in the game. I mean, they just dominated the boards, 51-35. They dominated in assists, 25-18. The Mavs had a ton of turnovers, 13. And so I think that you talked about Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum being able to play together to win a tandem that can win the championship. They proved they could do it. There was a piece that had to go. It turned out to be Marcus Smart, who was replaced by Drew Holiday.
Which is an upgrade.
That turned out to be a brilliant move, right? Drew Holiday, despite being a little bit older, doesn't show it at all.
And has a 3-year extension,
has
too.
A 3-year extension to
34.
go with it. So I think Brad Stevens deserves a lot of credit for recognizing what the weaknesses were of the team, what the psyche was of the key player, Jayson Tatum, what he could do to support the team and turn it into more of a team concept, bringing in some assistant coaches to help Joe Mazzulla more with more experience. It all worked out.
Absolutely.
And they got to be extremely happy and feeling good about the future as well.
I'll say this, though. It's really unfortunate for Marcus Smart, who always thought he'd remain a Celtic. He ended up getting hurt. Robert Williams, great defensive piece for him, ended up getting hurt. Malcolm Brogdon shot 42% from 3. He ended up getting hurt. Grant Williams just wasn't good. Every piece that they moved off of last season turned out to be the right move because what you brought in was you brought in better players. I think it was fewer players because you lost a bunch of them. You brought in fewer players that made a bigger impact.
Yeah.
Now that is how you run a team. That's how you build up a unit. You bring in very few players. You get rid of what you think is a lot of decent to bad pieces, and you bring in a couple good ones, and they make a bigger impact than all those players combined. That's what Porzingis and Drew Holiday did.
Yeah.
Porzingis is a 20-a-night scorer who plays very good defensively. Drew Holiday is arguably the best defensive point guard in a very long time. And guess what? The first year on 2 teams, he's able to actually win the NBA Finals, which I believe is the first time in NBA history for him to do that as well. Derek White, 3-point. I think he's a pretty good 3-point fiasco and definitely one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. Him and Drew Holiday both made defensive second team. So if we're talking about defensive backcourt, the Celtics have the best. We talk about I would say a nice thunder and lightning punch. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are probably top 3 in the NBA.
And center-wise, you got to put Porzingis up there in the top echelon too. The way he played all year and the stats he had for the Celtics. He has an injury issue problem, and he was injured for these playoffs. He did get in there last night, but not for very long. Scored a few points, and the Celtics were able to get it done with all the depth they have, even with him hurt most of the time. They only lost 2 games in the whole playoff series. They had several gentlemen's sweeps there. I think you call Dallas Celtics a gentleman's sweep, right?
Yeah, gentleman's sweep. Yeah, 5 games.
The second game in Dallas, the Celtics didn't really. You could tell
They got crushed.
They got crushed. So they came back and showed that they're just the dominant team.
And the big part about it is they are plus 280 favorites, and it's a long shot. I think it's plus 280 to 700, which is, I believe, the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, next year.
Yeah, next year, Denver Celtics.
Yeah, that's you're already making it's
Nuggets
June 18th.
Celtics the finals for next year, and that will be a nail biter.
Well, here's the thing: all the key players from Boston, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, White, Horford, and Pritchard, all signed through next year. Every single one of them. And then Hauser has a team option for this upcoming season, which the Celtics will probably, accept. The big one is, though, for the first time in history, you can now negotiate for players that are not becoming free agents. Actually, with your own free agent, you could start negotiating today. So it's a day after the finals. You could immediately start negotiating with your own free agents. So players who won't be a free agent could become eligible to sign extensions on July 6th, which means that Jayson Tatum can sign a 6-year, $315 million supermax extension in a couple weeks from now?
I'm sure that's going to happen. I can't wait for that to happen.
It's going to be insane to see, but the big part about it is the Celtics, they're not changing. All the key players are coming back. All
Why
are
would
signed. Jayson Tatum does have 2 years
left. They won
left
over
on his
80
deal.
games this year, all for the whole season.
Yeah. No,
with the 16 wins in the playoff round, only 2 losses, 16-2. Come on.
Hey, it's impressive. Celtics are your 2023-2024 NBA title champs. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.